Hello everyone! In this video, I'll show you how to create this plasma material just by using the material node in Unreal Engine 5. To do that, I'm going to create a new material, call that M-Plasma. I'm going to open it. The first thing I'm going to do is change the settings to go from opaque to translucent. Then I'm going to create a new constant 3, so constant 3 vector. I'm going to right click on it and convert it to a parameter, which I'm going to name color. Then from there, I'm going to get a multiply node. And from that multiply node, I'm going to look for a constant 1 vector. But instead of just looking for constant, I'm just going to press 1 on my keyboard and click. I connect that to the multiply node, and I will convert this into a parameter, which I'm going to call emission. Those two nodes are allowing us to create the color of the material, and in this case we want something that is emissive. So I'm going to plug that directly into the emissive color. By default, I'm going to change the color into red and the emission to 30. Here we go. So we can see that here the material is already emissive. So now, what I want to do is to create the actual texture. I'm going to look for a node called noise. Click on it. In the settings of this node, I'm going to change the function from simplex to Voronoi. Now I'm going to change the scale from 1 to 30. I'm going to look for a new node. In this case, I want a rotator node. What I want to do is to move the texture around. So right now we don't see the texture yet, but if I go from the noise and plug that into the opacity, we can see our texture working. So it's a bunch of small dots that we can't really see. Try something bigger. What I'm going to do is from the rotator, I'm going to look for an append node. So append vector. This would allow me to connect the rotator into the noise node. Right now there is an error because there's no B value, so I'm going to press 1 on my keyboard, left click, get a value here, and this doesn't need to be a parameter, or at least not now, but I'm going to change this value into 1. What I'm doing here is that if I was connecting the rotator directly into the position of the noise, I will get an error saying that you cannot cast from a smaller type float 2 into a larger type float 3. The rotator works usually with textures, and is a float 2, but the type of noise value is float 3. So what we need to do is we need to change the rotator value into a readable vector, in this case a float 3. So this is what the append node is for, and this is why we are multiplying that by a value, in this case just skipping 1 to have a default value. So by doing that, we can already see the texture working. Now we can see the movement, and this is because of the rotator. If I change the center of X to 0, you can see that the movement is changing completely. Same for center Y. If I put that to 0, you can see that the movement is completely different. I think it's good to just skip those values to 0.5, but changing the speed. So I want a speed that is almost 0, but we still want some movement. So in this case, 0.1. So now we have a bit of movement, but we do not have the warping that we can see on the plasma texture. And to do that, what we're going to do is look for a node called wind, and it's going to be simple grass wind. Usually this is used for a grass mesh, where you would create a grass material for it, but this kind of works nicely for this type of material. I'm going to press 1 on my keyboard, create a new value here, press 1 again, and another time. And I'm going to connect the first node we created, the first constant we created, into the wind intensity, the second one into the wind weight, and the third one into the additional world position offset. And the result of this will be connected into the world position offset. By doing that, we see that nothing is changing, is because all of my values here are set to 0, but I want to change the first one to 0.7 and the second one to 0.3. And the moment I do that, we can see there's a bit of warping happening, what is happening actually here with this node is that we're creating this wind illusion that there's some movement on the material when there's not. And this movement is defined by those two values, the wind intensity and the wind weight. If you want, you can also have the additional world position offset value here to be something greater than 0. And it's kind of creating the illusion that the mesh is moving, telling that there is some wind. And we connect that to the world position offset in the material, saying that every second, pretty much, the movement, there is some movement with the material. So what is very nice with Unreal Engine is that you don't really have to think about applying time, multiplying that with values. We just have a node that does all of that. But what's going on behind is that you have a time value, every frame is multiplied by some other values, and so on and so on. We have different parameters, in this case wind intensity and wind weight, that we apply to create this different type of movement. Now what I'm going to do is change the emission to actually something higher, let's say 100. I'm going to save that, and in my scene I'm going to add a new object. In this case I'm going to look for shapes. I want a sphere because this is what works the best for a plasma material, and I can just drag and drop my plasma material on the sphere, and we can see we have it working. And the sphere is not moving, but because we define the world position offset, we have the illusion that it's actually bouncing around when it's not. And if you want to create variations of that material, just simply right click on the material, create a material instance. I'm not going to rename that, but I'm going to open it. And here we can change its color and the emission. This is why we define them as parameters. In this case, I'm going to say I want something like 200, something extremely bright, but you know what? I want it to be purple. And I'm going to save this material instance and just simply drag and drop on here. And so you can create as many different materials you want that will have this plasma texture. So this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next one.